Hello and welcome back to the Slick Pivot Sessions. I'm Liz Ward, the UK's first pivot coach and founder of Slick Pivot. This is the podcast where we dig, delve and deconstruct the journeys of people who have pivoted their careers. I know it can feel rough when you're at a pivot point, so we'll be stripping back the sugarcoating and uncovering the pitfalls and progress of our guests, unearthing some practical advice for those of you wanting to make a change. Join me as we crack the formula for making a successful pivot in your life or work. My hope is that by sharing these stories, it sparks inspiration on how to design your work life for more happiness and growth. Because I believe that life is too short to do work that doesn't make you happy. I'm joined today by Yasmine Say, owner of Say Fitness Personal Training. Yasmine is a level 3 personal trainer with specialisms in mat Pilates, mobility and functional training. Before becoming a personal trainer, she spent 10 years working in design, brand and marketing, including roles at the London 2012 Olympics and as a lecturer for the University of Southern California. I chat to Yasmine about how she made the pivot from the world of design to a more sporty situation and what prompted that pivot. Yasmine is super inspiring and this podcast is full of gems for you, like listening to mentors, getting buy-in from friends and family, and working out those superpowers you might not know you have. I met Yasmine in 2012 when we were both working on the London 2012 Olympics. It was great to catch up with her, hear her pivot story, since those days when we both had 9-to-5 jobs. I really enjoyed recording this Slick Pivot session and I hope you enjoy it too. And if you do like what you hear, please subscribe to this podcast, leave a review and a star rating. Subscribers, written reviews and star ratings really help us grow this podcast, reach more people and bring you fantastic guests. Okay, here goes. Welcome to Slick Pivot Sessions. It's so brilliant to have you on today. I'm really looking forward to hearing your pivot story.
Thank you, Liz. It's lovely to chat to you. And I love the fact how our worlds have collided again since working at the Games. So, yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the first series of your podcast.
When I wrote my list of podcast guests, which I actually wrote a while ago, you were on there. We were in the same place. In 2012, we both worked together on the London 2012 Olympics. You were there in the branding team and I was in the marketing team and we were working together. And then over the years, we've both kind of created our new careers and become into new kind of orbits. Could you start by giving us bit of a top line overview of your career? So I know you started as a graphic designer.
Yeah, starting point was, yes, graduating from Kingston University back in 2005. So I graduated in graphic design with the view to basically become a graphic designer. And I spent the next sort of 4 years working in the public sector and the private sector as a graphic designer. And in between those years, I found that I really discovered my love for branding. And so I decided to study a marketing diploma, basically to up my skill set so that I could find a job in branding. And in sort of 2008, so the recession, I found myself redundant, which was quite a scary time, actually, I think, in anyone's career, because you're never quite sure what the next step is. So I was freelancing for a bit, which was good because it helped pay the bills whilst I sort of discovered my next step. And it was a friend of mine that actually found the job ads for London 2012 to work in the branding team. And I thought, well, what a wonderful opportunity to give this a shot. And yes, and I landed a job working in the brand team, which was, I mean, as you can attest to, it was an incredible 4 years. I was working there.
You were one of the very early employees, weren't you?
Yeah, one of the sort of veterans. I mean, it was weird to see how, you know, a small, I mean, particularly our team, Liz, I mean, was, you know, the brand and marketing team was no more than 10 people when I started there. And then by the time we both had left, it had grown to, I can't remember even.
There was over 100 people, I think.
I mean, it's incredible. So, and that was the same for most of the teams at Low Cog. So, but what an incredible opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, how many times do you get to say that in your life? So
I remember that being written on the wall, and when I was having a bad day, I would look at it and go, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
It absolutely is. And you remind yourself, you know, daily that, you know, our generation won't see another games in the City of London. So it was wonderful, and it brought me so many opportunities. I met so many different people. You know, you broaden your network in the time that you're working at somewhere as big as the games, you know. And, you know, at the same time, that job has to come to an end. And of course, you're made, well, officially redundant, right, at the end of the game. So, you know, whilst everyone's figuring out their next step, I was, again, this is a story in itself, but to cut a long story short, I had made connections with a university, a private university in California, who so during my time in the games, and they offered me another job of a lifetime, basically, and they invited me to come and be a visiting lecturer at their university. This was in 2013, to work and basically teach graphic design and branding to their students for a year.
Amazing. And so everyone was going off trying to find their next kind of long-term gig, and you were going to America to become a lecturer.
It was so surreal, because I remember the day that I got that email in my inbox, and my husband and I had entertained the idea for a very long time, actually, of trying to go and work and live in the States. But for whatever reason, it's not that simple. And I felt like, I don't know, just it was fate. It was like it was meant to be. But I couldn't get over reading that email going, and I turned to my husband at the time and I just said, you know, Ryan, we've got our tickets to America. We're going to America. And but at the same time, I also couldn't come to terms with the fact that I was going to do a job that I had never done in my entire life.
Yeah, I'd love to come back to that and really dive into that, because I think that whole like new experience of going into the complete unknown is something that you learned there. But then, you know, let's just continue the journey to now. So you went to America, you did the lecturing, then you came back, and then you went back to branding for a while.
Well, this was the big kind of, I guess, you know, the big bump back to reality, and it really did feel like that. I didn't expect it to feel like that, but it did. We returned in sort of end of January of 2014, and I thought, right, well, you know, back to reality, back to London, you know, my home. I've got this, quite unconventional CV, you know. It's not as straight laced and sort of, you know, working from one agency to another, but it's a pretty impressive CV. And I thought, I'm going to go back into branding. I'm going to I wanted to work agency side, but I was also kind of offered up some opportunities more client side. And I utilized my quite sort of flourishing LinkedIn profile. Basically, you know, I've always said this in my life, like, never burn your bridges. Your network is so important throughout your life, wherever your career takes you. And I tapped into that network, and, you know, I worked hard to try and find, you know, the job, the next step. Essentially, I was buying coffees for everyone I knew who was high up in any agency, but just nothing seemed to work out. I couldn't find a permanent job. I don't know whether it was just the market the way it was. The industry wasn't doing so well that year for whatever reason. I was getting interviews, but not for the roles that really kind of sparked my interest. There was nothing really grabbing me. So I did freelance for some agencies. But ultimately there was never a permanent role at the end of it. And here was me, I've always sought comfort from a full-time role, working for a company, working for an agency. I never, ever, ever at this point, or even assumed I would ever think I would want to work for myself, or go freelance or self-employed.
It just wasn't in your kind of thinking. It sounds
No.
like what you were looking for, that permanent role, being an employee, having the job, the security, the title, the routine, I suppose.
Totally. The comfort of knowing that you have a paycheck at the end of every month. I also really enjoyed working as part of a team. I love the team culture. I loved having structure. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a typical type A personality, but I always liked having just something set in stone. I didn't have to worry about finding the work or anything like that. So, I mean, I had a taste of, obviously, during the recession, I had a taste of freelance life, and I was like, oh, this further confirms that this is not for me. I mean, it's fine as a means to an end, but it's definitely not for me in the long term. So towards the end of that year, I was still waiting on some interviews, the results of some interviews, but again, nothing was coming up. And I thought, gosh, you know what? I could be waiting forever at this point, and I just can't. Something's got to give. And what is it? And at that point, I felt like the universe was sending me a message. I mean, people will call it their kind of epiphany moment, whatever you want to call it. I just thought, maybe this is time for a change, Yasmine. And that was when I decided to make my decision to change careers.
Yeah. And did you see it? Was there literally an aha moment? Can you remember the time when you were like, you know what? I'm gonna shift?
The funny thing is, it wasn't one of those aha moments for me. I had always entertained the idea of becoming a personal trainer. And, I've always been passionate about fitness. I've always been that gym bunny. I just, I don't know. I just never thought of it as a viable career. I just thought, oh, it would be great, just maybe as a side job or something like that, even though I didn't even think that was possible to have it as a side job. But either way, I always entertained the idea, but I could think of every reason not to do it. I mean, it's one of those typical sort of, self-sabotage moments where you think, yep, it's I'm too old to change careers. I have to drop salary. I have to start from scratch. I have to do my qualifications. There's so many young people doing it. Who's going to want an old PT like me? And when I started thinking like this, I was basically talking myself out of it, even though I had, spoken to my husband, I'd spoken to my friends about it, and even my parents, and they said, well, why don't you do a bit of research into it and everything? And I said, yeah, but I just don't, what's the point? I'm over the age of 30 now. I can't change careers at this late stage, and I feel like I will have wasted my entire education. But it was actually the person who is very responsible for where I am right now is my old personal trainer, James, who I when I was living in Kingston, when I was working at the games, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to call him up and have a chat with him and just ask his advice. And I gave him the whole list. He's like, Yasmine, why don't you want to go ahead with this? And I reeled off my long list of all the reasons not to do it. And he said, let me stop you there. He said, why do you think you're too old to change careers? He said, you do realize I did the same. He changed careers to become a PT at 30. And I was like, well, who wants to listen to an old PT? There's so many young ones. It's a saturated industry and all this. And he said, I'll stop you there. The fact that you are how old you are is one of the biggest USPs of a personal trainer. And I said, how's that? He said, you have life experience. And I said, oh my gosh. He said, do you not realize that you will understand, where all your clients are at, the fact that they're juggling work-life balances. They're stressed out individuals. Most of them are desk workers. You know, they're also trying to juggle a family life as well, a social life, and trying to keep fit and healthy at the same time. And they said he said, you will be able to relate to them. They will be able to relate to you, and you will be able to help them.
Oh, what a gift that
I know.
conversation was.
I know. It was absolutely, that was the I guess the pivotal moment.
Yeah.
When I realized I was meant to do it.
Yeah, you were meant to do it, and you had your long list of excuses, reasons, rationale, the kind of logical part of our brain that just tries to give you really, really good reasons to keep you safe, I suppose, not put yourself out of your comfort zone. And he kind of shone a light and went, you know what, there is actually another way. And what if all this experience and all these talents that you've got actually build towards the next move?
Completely.
Oh, great. What's his name?
His name's James Chandler.
James. Okay, good on James. And so now, to the present day, where are you now then? So you are a personal trainer. What are you doing?
Yep. So it will be, in March, it will be 5 years. So even though at the time I thought, I'll just see how this goes, and if all else fails, I could always go back to branding and marketing. But look, 5 years on and still no regrets, which is, I guess, a good thing. But I am now, I run my own business, Say Fitness Personal Training. I'm based in Chiswick in West London. And yes, it's been a I can't even really say it's been a roller coaster ride. It's just gone quite smoothly. I kind of, and I almost feel guilty sometimes saying this, but I've pretty much managed to land on my feet, and I think it's so scary when you change career and you just don't know year to year how it's going to go. But I think with my whole marketing brain switched on, and obviously all my skills that I certainly didn't throw away, just because I was changing careers, they've helped me enormously. Because yes, okay, I'm now in a position I never thought I would be in, as in changing careers and being self-employed. So it's completely out of my comfort zone from what I'm used to in the past. But I've been able to succeed, and I haven't had any major slip-ups. Of course, there are things that I've had to sort of work out along the way, but and there have been challenges and so on, financially and otherwise. But I don't know, I feel like I'm in a good place where the business is. And the beauty of this industry, and what I love about it most of all, is that you're an eternal student.
And you are.
Yeah, and that's what I love, because I love learning new things. I love meeting people. I mean, the whole reason I got into being a personal trainer is to help people. But I'm a total social animal. So for me, I absolutely love connecting with new people, which is very much this job, but also that I get to learn more and more, and I get to develop my skill set, which is wonderful. So
it's great to hear and to reconnect, from those days in 2012 where pre-games time, it was quite crazy, and getting that event off the ground and and interestingly, it was in sport, so it kind of makes sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
But you talked about being a student, and that reminded me, I want to go back to what you're talking about in terms of the lecturing in that point in time. You decided to leave the UK after the games and go and do something that was outside of your comfort zone, and be a lecturer. So can you tell us about that, and your kind of learnings and challenges going into that experience, and I suppose coming out of it as well?
Yeah, sure. So going to lecture at the university, at Chapman University in California, was probably one of the scariest points in my career, because once I had got over the overwhelming joy that I had got this incredible opportunity in this job, it dawned on me. I was like, but I don't know how to teach.
It's like, I mean, oh, this is a dream. Oh, I'm totally exposed now. What am I going to do?
I absolutely proper imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a classic example of that, really, because it really dawned on me. I was like, why on earth is this guy, hiring me to do a job that I genuinely don't know how to do? I've never taught in my life. I don't have a teaching qualification. I didn't even know if you needed a teaching qualification, let alone, visas and all of that. Suddenly dawned on me that I was like, oh my God, am I way out of my depth here? And I really started to panic. I mean, in all honesty, I had proper panic attacks.
What did that panic look like? You have panic attacks? Like what?
Oh my God!
How did that play out for you?
It was just anxiety. Like I was like calling up my to-be boss, and I was saying, I just don't think I can do it. I genuinely, and I know that's probably going to be quite a surprising thing to say for a lot of my friends and family who will be listening to this, because they saw it as, oh, amazing, Yasmine, absolutely, go ahead, and this is absolutely incredible opportunity. And of course it was. I completely understand how this was, this is not just handed to anyone, this amazing job. But for me, it was moving country, everything out of my comfort zone into a new job that I just had no idea how to do, had no experience in. And also the responsibility of teaching high-level university students. I felt like their education was now in my hands. And so I think I mean, in my typical way, I had already gone there a couple of months before we were due to move over there, and just to settle things like just everything from accommodation to understanding the whole setup at the university and meeting my colleagues and so on. And I just worked super hard from like October sort of 2012 through to December 2012, because I had to create a whole new branding module.
Wow.
At university level, which again I didn't have a clue.
So you literally, like, because I remember the games finished in September, so you then went into preparation mode, readying yourself for the US and writing the module, like
writing
the rule book.
Understanding how to teach the other modules I had to teach throughout the year. At the same time, obviously, moving your life over there, you're just, having to pack all your stuff, ship off all your stuff over to California. And I think, you know what, when I had that conversation with my boss over the phone, and he just I was so panicky over the phone. He must have thought, oh my God, why on earth are we hiring this girl? She's not ready for this. And instead he just said, look, there's a reason we hired you, Yasmine, is because your expertise in branding at the games, which is how we got to know you in the first place. And also, your graphic design, level of expertise, you are a professional in the field. There's no reason for us not to hire you. And we also, this is the first time, this was actually properly scary. He said, this is the first time we've ever actually hired a visiting professor from anywhere outside the US. And I was like, okay, no pressure then. So yes, as soon as
I think that's a really interesting thing that you mentioned there, is that, and I know quite a lot of people freak out when they get the job. We all work towards getting the job or getting the contract or getting that thing that you want, and then you go, oh, imposter syndrome, I want to back out now, I want to go home and sit on the sofa instead. That would feel better, thank you. Let's stick with what we know, let's stick with what people know me for, and stay safe. And one of the things that we forget is that the person hired you or booked you because they thought you were good. And what a great guy to just reassure you of that.
Absolutely. And it was reassuring, because it was what I needed to hear, actually, and just help me settle into just, you know what, and I kept telling myself, reminding myself, Yasmine, everything is going to work out okay. It usually does. Like I said, you know, earlier, I seem to have landed on my feet, which is wonderful, and no major slip ups to date, but still it was just so much better when we actually, you know, settled in California. I had a couple of weeks before the job started, and of course it was nerve-wracking going into the lecture hall and presenting yourself, because at that point, I mean, you could present yourself to a group of students who don't really know you. You could be anyone you want to be. And that was quite an interesting prospect. I thought, oh, I could walk into there and sort of, you know, again, I could be a fraud, right? I mean, I already thought that I was, you know, with this whole imposter syndrome hanging over me. But I went in there and I was myself, and I tell you what, it was a life-changing year on so many levels, and played a huge part alongside London 2012, a huge part in my choice of to go ahead with the career change.
Yeah, wow. And so what would you say like your big learnings were from the, you know, California experience?
I think to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
100%. It goes a long way, and I think just reminding myself, I think I repeated that phrase every single day up until we left to go to California. I said, everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to work out. Everything is going to work out. And it absolutely did. As soon as you just kind of relax and sort of go with the flow, which is not typical of my personality, in all honesty. I'm a bit of a control freak. I like to be in control of my own destiny and what's going to happen, and I like to plan and sometimes over plan. And this was a situation where I couldn't do any of that, and it worked out totally fine. And I just, you know, trusted in my boss, in, you know, choosing me, giving me the job, and trusted in my own skills, and I just, yeah, I just worked hard, and it was just an incredible experience, and one I will never forget.
And I bet by the last lecture that you did, you were just, you know, rolling it, you know, it's bouncing around, and it was coming really naturally by the end of the year.
That's the funny thing, is that when you do with any job or any skill or anything you do in life, it's practice makes perfect, and yes, it just became like a second home. I felt so comfortable with the students. A lot of them since that job have become friends of mine. It's wonderful to see, you know, where they've all ended up, and you just think, gosh, if I just played a tiny little part in the development of their education and where they've now ended up in their careers. I am so proud of all of them, and it's just such an honor to have had that opportunity.
Oh, you were gifted it, and it shaped the next move, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Really. So then you
100%.
came back to London, and you said it was hard going back to freelance. You said you were on the, you know, the coffee thing, buying everyone a coffee, lighting all the fires you possibly could. It sounds like you were doing all the things that they say in the books to do to go and find the job.
Absolutely.
How was it when it wasn't working? Like, how did that feel?
Again, I kept thinking, am I doing something wrong here? Like, this is the hilarious thing was, I was taking on the advice that I had given to my students before I left California. So I was like, guys, you know, make sure, you know, your LinkedIn profile is up to scratch. Make sure you're networking, even though you've got a couple of years left of uni, you know, this is the time to build those connections. I was doing all of that myself. And so I was thinking, hang on a minute, why isn't this working for me? And you know what? It did bother me, especially as it was getting towards the end of the year. And I was like, wow, okay, I've only been picking up like the odd freelance jobs, you know, but nothing is sticking. And how long can I, you know, financially, and how long can I feasibly wait until I have to make a bigger decision, and whether that's changing careers or, I don't know, requalifying as something else. I think that was the tough, when nothing's changing and you're not really seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. You're like, wow, okay, something's got to give here.
You've got to start tweaking, you
Mm-hmm.
you had one approach and you had one vision. And then you gathering that feedback, and if nothing was happening, it does take a while though, often, to get to that point of experimenting,
Mm-hmm.
because one coffee could lead to another. And it sounds like you got to the point where you're like, what could be a new path? And then, you had that amazing conversation with James. Love James.
Yeah.
And sometimes these people come into our worlds that are not our friends and family, that can
Mm-hmm.
gift you with a little bit of insight, and that's all we need.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened next then? So James gave you inspiration.
Yep.
Now
And
you're 5 years in. So how'd you build a personal training business?
So after that conversation, I still was, believe it or not, I was still unsure. I think I believed in myself that I could do it. That wasn't the problem, requalifying, and I had done my research on that side. But I needed to, I am one that seeks approval from others as well, a lot of the time. So I decided to write a business proposal to present to my parents and to my husband, to just show that I wasn't going crazy, basically going for this career change. I thought, am I mad, or is this a sensible next step?
Yeah.
I wrote a whole business outlining the sort of advantages, the pros and the cons, essentially, and it was getting the backing of my parents and my husband and a few of my friends. And I thought, right, let's do it. And so after Christmas of that year, so 2015, I started studying to become a personal trainer, and financially, and I know we were going to chat about the finances, because that is sometimes the reason a lot of people don't go for those career changes.
Because money can be it can be such a daunting barrier to
it is
shifting, and
mm-hmm.
In the reality, you're probably going to have to take some kind of pay cut,
Yeah.
And so how did you deal with that?
So I would say that was certainly, and it still is, it's one of the biggest challenges I faced and still face. So at the time, obviously, I managed to get a bit, it helped that my husband and I were living back at my parents' place, because obviously after we moved back from California, it made sense to stay in London, and my parents were living in London at the time. So that helped a tremendous amount. The other side was that I needed help to pay for the course, the PT course. So I got a little bit of help, not only from my own savings, but also from my husband's and my parents. And then it also helped that it was actually the right time, not only for myself, but my husband had just accepted a full-time role. And so he was financially, being able to support me a little bit more. So that really, really helped. I think, I was obviously in a very fortunate position, because I totally understand that not everyone, it's never the right time, right place for everyone when they go for a career change like this. And it was, almost 2 months, and I was already qualified by the end of mid-March in 2015, and I actually took on a part-time job working in a specialist running shop. So I thought, well, if I take up a part-time job, it should be in fitness somewhere.
Yeah.
So actually that gave me some money on the side, at least, whilst I was studying. And then as soon as I qualified, there was no wasting time. I went straight to work for a commercial gym, because for me, that was the best starting point. I personally, with regards to career changes, I just knew that I had to swallow my pride a little bit and start from the bottom. And for me, the best way was to get a job in a gym, learn the trade essentially, and learn from other people who had obviously been PTs for a longer time, and I thought it was the best way also to build up my client base.
Yeah,
um,
what an amazing way to, well, one, to keep yourself in a world where you're learning from others. Because
Absolutely.
when you start your own business, you can be a solo entrepreneur, the lovely term,
Yeah.
us solo entrepreneurs have. But if you're working completely solo,
Hmm.
you only know what you know. So if you're immersing yourself in an environment where you can learn from those other people that have been doing it a while, or even might be fresh like you, and there's a high footfall of clients coming through every
Exactly.
single day. So that seems like that was quite a good move for you to start with.
It definitely was, and again, it helped because it was again back in slightly my comfort zone because I was getting a steady salary. So for me, I was able to, actually get some money. Whereas if I had just started out on my own, I was really starting from nothing, and I just didn't feel confident yet in my skills. To just be able to go out and get clients. Okay, yes, I've got a marketing degree and a graphic design degree, but at the same time, I mean, this is a whole new industry I'm working in. I can't just expect to just sort of, come out of doing a PT course and have 5 clients waiting to come
Mm,
and train with me.
mm.
So
And I think as it's all about practice as well, as get as much practice, as many
yeah,
possible clients as
yeah.
possible, to really refine your style as well, and who you want to work with, and who are your ideal clients, and what kind of things do you want to hone in on. So I expect that experience with the at the gym was helping you refine your offering.
Absolutely. And I discovered it was through actually working at the gym. And I ended up working there almost 2 years. So a year and a half before I left to start Say Fitness personal training. And for me, I became pre and postnatal qualified. I realized that was a huge demographic to tap into. And it actually made me very well known in the gym because I was one of just 2 personal trainers who was pre and post natal qualified. So as you can imagine, I signed up many pregnant women, postnatal clients as well. So I was very lucky on that side.
So you had a niche even within the
Mm-hmm.
environment where there was lots of fitness experts.
Yep.
And so then, what were the other building blocks to getting you where you are now?
I think certainly when I decided to leave, and I had already planned, year and a half maximum, and then I'm going out on my own, and that presents its own challenges, right? Because, like I said earlier, I never expected ever to work for myself, and it was never a goal of mine. So, but of course, I had 10 years of brand and marketing experience. So essentially, I never had a problem in the gym selling myself. And I would say to any new PT, this is 80% a selling game. You are selling yourself, and you are also, when you decide to go out on your own as a PT, you are a walking brand. So with all my branding experience, I essentially put it all together, and yeah, marketed my business. I worked with a friend of mine to build a brand, had brand guidelines, built my website. It's pretty much ready to go. And the other huge benefit of when I left the gym, I had obviously built up a good client base, and the majority of the clients left with me. So I wasn't starting from scratch. I actually had built a good client base, and they didn't want to be trained by anyone else, so they actually followed me. So I was very appreciative and very lucky to be in that position.
It just shows how much, your relationships and your, personal brand will carry for years. People won't forget an experience that they've had with someone
Hmm.
that's helped, benefited them. So you left, you went out on your own, you launched yourself, you started off with some clients. And I know that, you also work with Sweaty Betty, you were an ambassador for them.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been an amazing kind of last few years with my business now. And in 2017, I was awarded the Sweaty Betty ambassadorship for the Chiswick store, and I have continuously worked with them, running their boot camps, teaching classes for them, hosting. They have like wellness events called Wellness Wednesdays, where you host events in the shop, and so I've done a lot of work with Sweaty Betty, which has just been amazing at kind of, it helps kind of sort of promote your brand and raise awareness of your brand as well. And for me as a PT in this area of Chiswick and West London. So, but there've been so many amazing opportunities as well, along the way. And I have to say, when you work in this industry, you work alongside so many incredible health and wellness professionals, fellow PTs, who I've become so close with, fitness instructors. You get to work, I've worked and taught Pilates. I'm a Pilates instructor as well, so I've taught Pilates in several wonderful London sort of studios, and ultimately, it's one of the best things about, especially when you have your own business, is your superstar clients. And they really make you feel so lucky to be able to do a job that you enjoy. So yeah, I feel very lucky.
And so would you say that they are your high five moments?
Definitely. I'd say definitely the Sweaty Betty ambassadorship, the opportunities that I've had working in this industry, and without a shadow of a doubt, the client transformations. And I have, worked with clients who have had amazing weight loss success stories, through to training clients for their first marathon, which is always amazing because I go then to the marathon to see them. And that is always just such a, oh God, it's such an inspiring, it's inspiring moment to watch your clients, fulfill, a dream of theirs, right? And then through to, I've also, worked more recently with a client who has stage 4 cancer. And you just think, what, even if I can help each one of these clients just a little bit to help transform their lives for the better, or to remain pain-free for the rest of their lives, then I have done my job, and it's just such a rewarding experience.
Oh, that's amazing to be able to see those transformations, and and look at your transformation. Living that life of fitness, and it sounds like you really enjoy doing what you do. So what would you say your biggest learnings have been?
Biggest learnings, I think, thinking back now, to believe in yourself more, and to sort of give yourself credit as well. Like, I think it's sometimes so hard. So you get caught up, with the job and everything, that you sometimes don't just step back and think, I've really done a really good job here. I should pat myself on the back a little bit more, and give myself kudos, to what I've achieved. But I think for me, that everything does work out in the end. To that self-belief really goes a long way. And just to give yourself more credit, credit where credit is due, really.
And so, what would the old you say to the new you?
Probably something like, I can't believe you did what you said you'd never do, which is true. I remember even having that discussion. I can't remember with who, but I said, no, that's not me. If I see myself at 45, no way am I going to be working for myself. No, I'll always work for the man. And it just goes to show you absolutely never know what is round the corner in life. So I should often, I think, let go a little bit, and probably go with the flow a little bit more.
Yeah. Wow. That's such a good I love that,
Yeah, just trusting the process, right?
Yeah.
Trust
and like,
it.
you're doing one of the things you thought you would never do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And loving it, So
Completely.
you've created something that you were resisting. But
Absolutely.
would you say you like your job? I mean, I'm assuming.
Oh God. I mean, I'd always believe, follow your passion. You've got to do what you believe in and what your, not necessarily what your purpose is, because I do believe your purpose changes throughout your life. But I do believe that actually my husband asked me once, what aspect of your job, makes time like disappear, when you're just loving it so much that it just, the time flies by. And for me it was always teaching, coaching, and I never realized that was a skill that I had. But it is helping people, whether it's in a coaching format or teaching, like I did it in California. But it's finding that sort of that state where you're in your real flow state, where everything just gels. Everything gels.
Wonderful. And you've built all of that into your business and doing it all together. And so I'm asking every guest this question. What would you say your pivot formula is?
So I think for me, when I sort of was thinking about what aspects or kind of, I guess, what dots connected, right, throughout, which led me to the point that I'm in now. And for me, the branding aspect was huge. Still have a love for branding. Obviously, my passion for fitness throughout my life, and that started, long before adulthood. This was back in school. And then the skill that I never realized I truly had was teaching. Coaching, essentially. So for me, it was the branding plus the fitness plus the teaching, which was really, I guess, my pivot point. So how I translate that in terms of, when people often ask me similar questions about how I ended up at this stage, is really finding something, what so your expertise, your specialist field, whether it's whatever you studied at university, for example, to finding what your love is, what you love. For me, that was fitness. And then finding kind of almost like what you were born to do, but maybe you don't realize it until later on in your life. And for me, that was helping people, teaching. And coaching. So that's I guess is my pivot formula.
Yeah, I love that. It's like understanding what your what's your expertise?
And
what do you love? And what's your kind of superpower? And tuning into that, because it sounds like it took a while for you to tune into that and notice, time disappears when I do that. And I'm actually quite good at it and I get good results. And so combining it all together has created Say Fitness. And so what's next for you and where can we find you?
So I make it a mission, as I mentioned earlier. I'm always an eternal student. So every year I make it my mission to study a new qualification. And this year I am putting all my efforts into studying for my level 4 nutrition diploma. So that is my aim for this year. So it will be a lot more that I can then offer my clients, which is great, because I always am all about approaching your health and fitness in a more holistic way. So that's exciting for this year. And in terms of where to find me, I'm across all the social channels. So whether that's on
Instagram, sorry to interrupt you, Instagram's really brilliant. You do lots of videos and it always makes me want to get off the sofa and stand up a bit.
Yay! Yeah, I just want to make everyone more mobile, whether you're sat at a desk or whether you go to the gym regularly. I just want everyone to just have a mobile and pain-free body. So yes, on Instagram it's at Say Fitness PT, and the same handle on Facebook, and I'm also on YouTube as well. So you can expect some more videos on YouTube soon, as I'm currently recording some new workouts. So
exciting. Well, I'll put all the links in the show notes so everyone can access those. Yasmine, it's been so brilliant to catch up, to hear your story, and thank you for sharing such amazing insights. There's lots of helpful information and inspiration for people in this session. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz. It was lovely to chat to you, and thank you for having me on.
You've been listening to the Slick Pivot Sessions with me, Liz Ward, the podcast for life's achievers and believers. I hope you've enjoyed listening as much as I've enjoyed talking. Please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple or Google or wherever you get your podcasts. This helps us to grow and continue to bring you amazing guests. The show notes have all the links and references from today's session. And for one-to-one coaching or to find out about my Pivot Power programs, log on to slickpivot.com. Until our next session together, stay nimble and remember, no pivot is ever slick.